right, just give me 1 second, man. I think we're live right now. Let me
Uh-huh.
just get this straight. But peace and blessings to everybody on the check-in, man. We about to go live in just a moment with the tribal minister, Prince Charlandine Yasharayala, the mighty Hebrew, live from Tanzania, Africa. We're going to continue the conversation about the Merkabah light. We're going to dive a little deeper today. We're going to talk more about the rise and the fall of planetary consciousness. You can see the title. So we're going to get started in just a moment. But Mighty Hebrew, again, I appreciate you and your time, man, all the effort and work that you've been putting into your study and your scholarship, the Mighty Hebrew University, the work you're doing in Tanzania, Africa, the support you and love you give to those in Demona. It's a lot of work that goes into what you do and all our other brothers and sisters, such as, Zion Lex, and some of these others here that's out here in this YouTube world, man, because, we get beat up a whole lot when we bring forth this information. You know what I'm saying? So you got to have, tough skin to deal with all the criticism, but when we got the Most High Yah with us,
Facts.
who can stand against us? You know what I'm saying? Especially when you're bringing forth truth. A lot of information that you bring forth is not the typical information. It's not the typical scholarship that most Israelites bring forth. And that's why it's important for us to have these conversations so that we can understand a little bit more of what we've been missing out on, some information that, that has not been discussed per se, because people are afraid to delve into certain, you know, uh, uh, parts of this, this study, shall I say. But anyway, I'm not going to get too deep into that, because we got a long day ahead of us. So before we get started, if you could go ahead and introduce and talk a little bit about what you're going to bring forth, and then we're going to get into the video.
Shabbat Shalom, Bahashem Yahweh HaKodesh Israel. Tribal Minister Prince Charlene Dean, Ben Ami Montezor, Yamben Yasha'Allah Senior, the mighty Hebrew. I give all praise and honor to Yahweh, the supreme intellect of the multiverse, the supreme intelligent, powerful one of our forefathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Those striving for righteousness, I say into the family, Shalom Aleichem. It's definitely an honor to be on True Flicks Network with you, Mikael. You're doing some real wonderful work on these YouTube streets, bringing forth a higher understanding of divine consciousness when it comes to the Yah mind and the Hebrew Israelite nation. Also, we want to give a shout out to the family of the late Esoteric Thoughts. I call him ET, may he rest in completeness. That was a real powerful brother that connected me with BBC. So the mission will go on. Shout out to Nepal Shaddai. She's going to be taking over his work. You know what I mean? So it's definitely, it's a sad day as well as a joyous day, because in the Hebrew Israelite culture, we have a process of mourning, but we also have a process of celebration. We want to remember the work that Esoteric Thoughts brought forth, because he was like you, Mikhail. He was really like a different type of spiritual being. And he knew, we used to talk and he used to break down that he knew he was the Hebrews. You know what I'm saying? So may he rest in completeness and just keep his family in prayer. But let's get this presentation, jumping with the Merkabah light and the rise and fall from planetary consciousness into what we would call continental separation. And what we see right now throughout the world is this shattered mind state, so to say, when it comes to, the original intent for us to be here on this plane of existence, to bring forth the righteousness and the unity or the unification by the way of the principle of the subject matter. Don't matter what school of thought you in, that principle is what's universal in approach. And what has happened because of tribalism and dysfunctional behavior, we see that planetary oneness and consciousness have been separated by the way of continental differences and tribalisms and you right and I'm wrong, et cetera, et cetera. So what I'm gonna do is bring forth this PowerPoint presentation to show what happened from the beginning to now. Hallelujah. Hebrew Israelite sovereign nationalism has risen worldwide. So let's get this popping, Mikael. Let's get it, my lord.
All right.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Ready. Okay. So now we're going to start with Eden before the cataclysmic volcano that destroyed the Lemurian civilization. Now, some people call this the land of Mu. Others call it Wanana. Now, this was a known civilization and empire. And we also going to be given information of 4 cataclysms or catastrophic floods that destroyed the Atlantean civilization and empire. Now, the maps that's about to be shown, they're courtesy from Zaquin Hoshu or Mariel from out of Teleran, Israel, Northeastern Africa. So there's a couple maps that he gave that he actually constructed. So I want to give all honor to the elder that brought forth this. So go to the next slide. So now you see the earth before any of the cataclysms took place. You see Eden. Now we're under the impression that Eden is the Garden of Eden. Well, when you understand scripture, you have what is known as Eden, which is the whole entire planet itself. And then you have the Garden of Eden. This right here, what you see, is before there was a separation. Okay? You see all the continents as one. Okay? There wasn't even no continents at this time. What you see is a whole landmass before the tectonic plate started to shift, before any type of volcanic eruptions, before there was any type of floods. You see that the earth was one. There was no Africa, there was no Asia, there was no Europe, there was no Americas, there was none of that. But there was civilization. And we're going to prove that as we continue to go into the presentation. Go to the next slide. So now you see the planet Eden after the flood in the time of our father Noah. Now, what you see right here is the last flood, because as we continue to go on, I'm going to show there were 3 previous floods before the flood that we know as Noah's flood. Plato talks about this flood as well, that some people date 9,564 BCE. But this flood right here that you see right here is what Plato talks about. Now you see the planet Eden after the flood and the time of our forefather Noah into Peleg. Peleg in Ivrit or Hebrew means to divide. That's what that means. So now you see the breakup of the earth's surface. But even though you see it here, the earth was already broken up. We're going to get into these 3 previous floods as we continue on. So you've seen that the first image, you seen when the landmass was one. Now you see right here the broken up land masses. So now you can clearly see Africa, North America, Asia, South America, Antarctica, Australia, India. You see all that. Continue on. So now we have a book here by Professor Rudolph R. Windsor called The Valley of the Dry Bones, the conditions that face Black people in America, okay? Now, the reason why I'm bringing this book up, because a lot of people think that I'm the first one or the first Hebrew Israelite to come up with having an understanding of the Hebrew connection with our ancestors going back to the Indus Valley by way of Atlantis, by way of Lemuria. But I want to show you something on page 105. Let's see what Rudolph R. Windsor say, which is a well-respected Hebrew Israelite scholar who also wrote the book From Babylon to Timbuktu. Go to the next slide so they can see what he says out of his own mouth. Okay, now right here, because you're going to see the words that he say is going to align with this map. As you can see, in the center of Africa, and the land masses on the right-hand side, you see ancient Lemuria. This is a pictorial map of what scholars and people that deal with geography believe where ancient Lemuria once sat. Them doing diving excavations and all that, they know that there was a landmass in this area right here. And notice inside the center, you see Madagascar connected to this portion of land. Go to the next slide. So now, here is right here, Professor Rudolph R. Windsor in his book, The Valley of the Dry Bones, he says, the Garden of Eden was located somewhere between Asia and Africa, where the Ethiopians dwelt. Now, this term that they say in Ethiopian must be understood to only mean, some people describe it as burnt-faced people. You know, it even goes even deeper. Sometimes people translate it as even being stupid blockhead when you actually go into the Greek. But we know that when they talk about so-called Ethiopians, they only talking about people that are of dark-skinned mahogany skin tones, okay? And then it says, according to the European writer, Max Hindwell, located on the sinking continent of Lemuria, east of Africa. Now, I want to stop right there. I want you to slide back to that other map that you just left off at. So slide back. Now, as you see, we see that it's east of, Lemuria, as we see right there. That location that Rudolph R. Windsor is saying is the location where Lemuria is at, right there. Now go back to the quotation, Brother Bassem. Okay, so now it says this is where the first man and woman were created. When you read in the book of Bereshit or Genesis, it speaks about man being created from the afar or from the soil of the earth, and he was placed in the garden. It doesn't say that man was created in the Garden of Eden. It says that he was placed in the Garden of Eden. So having that understanding, we know he wasn't created in the garden, but he was placed there. So us knowing that, okay, us having the understanding of that Lemuria would be east of Africa, and we just seen the map that's defining the same thing, okay? Go to the next slide. Okay, Hebrew Anthropogenesis 101. If our Hebrew Israelite family believe that the mighty Hebrew was the first to speak about Lemuria, you are mistaken. We just read right there that we have Rudolph R. Windsor verifying what I'm saying. So I'm not the first one to say this. We have prominent scholars that acknowledge the same thing. If not, he wouldn't have never brought it up. Go to the next slide. Okay, the question, Africa or Lemuria? Hebrew Anthropogenesis 101, I state, it is a fact that the continent of Lemuria is in fact older than Africa by millions of years. I'm gonna prove that with old maps going back to ancient India, thousands of years. They were the first ones. When you go to the ancient Indus Valley, they have the oldest maps on the planet. And we're going to get into that in a second. So now, it's just the original Black Lemurians were a race of giants, okay, that inhabited the continent of Lemuria, now in the South Pacific and Indian Oceans. This Black race of giants is considered to be the ancestral progenitors of the people who later occupied the continent of Africa, which was later repopulated by the children of Ham. So when you read about the children of Ham, you're reading about post-Diluvian people that actually came into what we know as the Nile Valley and these different areas. But there were people in civilization civilizations that existed thousands and thousands of years, millions of years, sons of Noah. Okay. Now note, which was originally underwater. Now, the ancient Kemetians have historical evidences and stories saying that Kemet was underwater. Egypt and most of Africa was underwater, while there was already other civilizations that existed. Okay, so going back up a little bit, I'm gonna read this again. This black race of giants is considered to be the ancestral progenitors to the peoples who later occupied the continent of Africa, which was later repopulated by the children of Ham. Okay, and parts of Australia, areas of, go to the next slide. Some of the earliest, okay, that's the next, some of the earliest. Now note, earliest, it doesn't mean original. We only talk about oldest or earliest. Human remains have been found at the Mighty Hebrew University. We teach that in the middle of the Lemurian period. Some like roughly 16 million years ago, at the beginning of the, if I'm pronouncing it right, the Pescilline era. According to paleontology, a unique event occurred which dramatically changed the shape of. Stop it. So we're in the Pescilline period. So we're talking about roughly between 16 to 18 million BCE. Okay. And this is also a time during the separation of the asexual being into the masculine and feminine sexes before that they were polarities with the Ha'adam. Continue on. Hallelujah. Human life on our planet or on our plane of existence. Now, that's another topic, but I give you a brief synopsis of what I mean by that. When you read in Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, when it talks about the Adam went into a deep sleep. At one time, Adam, which means first blood or firstborn, it doesn't mean man, was what you would call an asexual androgynous being. It was neither man nor woman, but it had male and female sex principles. So within this state of sleep, which took millions of years, the separation of them polarities took shape and born out what we know as Ish and Isha, or man and woman, okay? Now, many are dealing with the fossil remains by way of scientists Richard and Mary Linke. Now they dealing with 3.2, 3.5 million years ago, dealing with these bones called Lucy. Now, you do have some paleontologists that have been studying this 32% of bone fragments, okay, which now some are arguing, trying to say that these bones are in fact male bones, dealing with studying the torso. Now, I don't know how true this is, but this is the argument that they're conveying. But the whole point is they're talking about lineal information. See, the problem with your Gentiles is this. The problem is when they deal with studying any type of anthropology, paleontology, archaeology, history, anything, they deal with taking small fragments of things and trying to give you an elaborate picture of historical reality when you can't operate and move like that. And this is how they center their reality. So now, getting back to the point, go to the next slide. Go to the next slide. So now, we also have Mary Linke going back further than the Lucy bones found in Ethiopia. Okay, Linke's argument competes with the claim of Johnston's and White that these represent a different humanoid species, talking about the fossil remains discovered in Tanzania. And they're saying it's a part of our genus Homo. So now we're talking about Jonathan and White, and these represent different humanoid species. As information keeps coming out, the date of human origin keeps pushing back steadily and steadily. Okay. Thus, the first identifiable ascendant of man, woman, and child, known by scientists as what they call the Rampius, and is known from Black Asian fossil remains, which dates back approximately 14 million years ago. So now what's happening?
Stop.
Go to the next slide. So now what's happening? Because we're under this.
Stop. So we're talking about the Ramapithecus, roughly around 14.5 million BCE. This is going to be the starting process of the hybridization of our genus Homo mixing with other species and subspecies that weren't a part of our human family. We are antediluvian history 101 by the way of the Mighty Hebrew University, being sponsored by True Flits Network. Hallelujah.
Hebrew Israelite sovereign nationalism has risen worldwide. Continue on, Adoni. This impression that everything comes from out of Africa. This is what we've been taught. When in fact, at one time, the whole entire earth was one. By the whole entire earth being one, there was no continents. See, what they're doing is they want us to believe before there was any continental drift, man wasn't on this planet. Through my research and my understanding, man has always been on this planet. Okay, but for us to look at based on how we define man today and how we see man today. So because of that, when we start looking for fossil remains, let's say if we want to go back 300 million years ago, and we don't find any fossil remains, in our mind state, there is no proof. But the reason why you may not find fossil remains because the denseness of us was vibrating on a faster rate. So that being said, we wouldn't be in the dense form that we are in today. This came by a process of becoming densified. So we have to get a better understanding and a better bird's eye view before we say, oh, if you're saying this, then why isn't it that? Because in our understanding, we think man just came on the planet in this physical form. We've been on this planet in, I don't want to say, you know, different forms in the sense of evolution, because I'm not talking about evolution. I'm talking about emanation. That's two different things. But we went into a state of light being, into the physical form. Even in the book of Psalms, it talks about how we wore robes of light. So we dwelt on this planet in the state of Elohim before we even transformed into this physical form that we see today. So this is why you won't find certain remains on this planet, because our body structure wasn't the way it is today. Okay, go to the next. Did you go to the next? Okay, so this is why you got brothers like Ben Ami, Arnold Josiah Ford, Yahweh ben Yahweh, Prince Asiel ben Yisrael, and a whole bunch of other people that say that the original man, we have no birth record. Even if you go to Psalms chapter 104, verse 5 and 6, it says that the earth is eternal. So as Dr. Kazriel bin Yahuda, Dean of the School of the Prophets Institute in Domona, Israel, Northeastern Africa, would say best, if there is no this plane of existence, then how can we conceptualize a beginning? Not to say that there was no beginning, but we would be naive. It would be naive of us to even try to fathom such calculations. Now we can give an estimate, and through the records that we have with the stanza of Zion, that you can go to ancient India back 111 trillion, 40 billion years ago, okay? But that's still a mathematical estimation. This is not the exact, but it gives us an idea of a sphere or circular idea how the cosmos came about into physical form today. See, I have to actually paint a picture. So then when I do bring in these different archaic symbols in the next presentation, because now I'm giving the historical analysis, then you'll be able to understand, okay? Then you'll be able to understand that the symbols that you see, all these picturesque symbols, these hieroglyphics, whether if they go back to the Mayans, the Toltecs, the Meztecs, the Aztecs, the Incans, all of them, the Pueblos, whatever writing system that has archaic symbolisms, you'll be able to see the creation story within the archaic symbols, as well as the pre-Diluvian civilizations within them symbols. And we're going to get into that. This is what it means to understand ancient archaic Hebrew symbolism. It's not just about the sound. It's about being able to go into the symbol and born out what is being said by way of the symbols of the pictures. Yes, the sound is there, okay, but it's telling us a story within them symbols, okay? So we see right here, as I said, that the original black man and woman, we don't have no birth record. There is no birth record of us, okay? So the primary source that I'm using right there was the Panda's Thumb, New York Staten, 1961 CE, page 130 by Stephen J. Grodd. Also, my brothers and sisters, the recent revolution in geography, which has developed a well-established, so now, a better understanding of the continental drift and plate they're saying the tectonics. They have a better understanding now, and it portrays a prehistoric world much more active and dynamic than early science envisioned. In fact, it is now held that the most recent plates to move to its present location is that of the Indian subcontinent, which was separated from the Asian mainland and far out in the Indian Ocean, okay? The original location of ancient Lemuria as late as 30 million years ago. This date accords quite well with the time given as to the origin of the Black Lemurian giants by the Mighty Hebrew University, the Theosophical Society, and many others, along with the appearance of Rempicus, both the next slide, and the continental drift, and the date of the appearance of man, woman, and child on the order of 3.2 to 3.5 million years ago. So I want to stop right there, for example. Now, they're aligning with 30 million years ago with all this. So when you actually study the appearance of the Lemurians, you're going to see, as we study these archaic symbols, you're going to see through the mathematics that was brought forth in the stanza of the Zion, records of ancient India, you're going to see that it aligns, I mean, almost precisely with the dates that those that study this type of geography is aligning with the Lemurian epic of 30 million years ago. You're going to see that. So we here at the Mighty Hebrew University are aligning the archaic symbols or Hebrew symbols with the scientific data that can be verified, okay? We're not saying science based on the Europeans, but we're talking about the observation that has been given down or handed down from generation to generation from sages or seers that came from out of ancient Israel and from out of the ancient Indus Valley, as well as even Mesoamerica. All these people go back to the same Hebraic branch, okay? And we're going to get into that in the future. So we know that this information is older than the bones that they found, what we know, in Ethiopia by way of Lucy. See, they got us under the impression, okay, that if they find something somewhere, like, for instance, if Basim is from DC, but hypothetically, he passes away in Georgia, but nobody knows. And 50 years later, they find his remains in Georgia. That doesn't mean that he's from Georgia because they found the remains there. You see how they play with our minds? Okay, because they may find remains. Because remember, the Earth's surface at one time was one. So this mind state of looking at continents as the origin of civilization, as well as the origin of humanity, would be preposterous. All the landmass was one, and humans dwelt on this one landmass when it was only one landmass. So this is why at the Mighty University, as well as the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem, go back to the word Edenic, because when you say Edenic, you're going back to the identifiable presence of humanity's existence, which is this plane of existence itself, it's Earth, okay? This is, you know, the true origin of man, this plane of existence. Go to the next slide, Brother Basim. Whenever you're ready. So we're older than the Lucy bones. We're older than any bones that they can find. There is no birth record of us, okay? There's no birth record that they can convey about us or humanity's origin, because we've always been here on this planet. So now, you see right here from the History Channel, the lost sinking continent of Lemuria, and then it gives its Indus Valley name. There's records out there, brothers and sisters, that this existed, that this happened, that this took place, okay? So we see it right there. And where do we see it at? East of Africa. Once again, we already gave a previous map. We gave a previous map, a different map that showed the same thing. Now here's a map coming from the History Channel, giving the same thing. And you can see the detail of it. Go to the next slide. So you know that this is not make-believe, because there's tons of information. We're going to get into some major primary sources that's going to be backing up what I'm saying and conveying, as Brother Basim brings up the next slide. Because I have to set a foundation for the people so the people can see that this is real. Here's another map of ancient Lemuria. You see it right there. And you see where it says Mu. Okay? You see the ancient names. Okay, all the names that you see are the actual names when you go into the stanza of Zion records. Now, the word stanza is a Sanskrit word. It's spelled S-T-A-N-Z-A. That means verse. Verse by way of chapters in the Zion book, that which is spelled D-Y-Z-A-N. Okay? Some people spell it D-Z-Y-A-N. So the Zion records are given these names of these areas, which is the oldest, not the Middle Netta, The oldest written documentation on this planet that we can go back to is in these records. And these Indus Valley Brahmins, which Abraham, our forefather Abraham, descended from out of the ancient Indus Valley society, you will see that they have records going back to the cosmos of 311 trillion, 40 billion years ago. This is the information that they wrote down. This is the information that our forefather Abraham. Let me share something with y'all. Now, you know what? I'm gonna wait, because you have so-called Jews that say that Abraham was the first Jew. Okay? And you hear that all the time. Now, those that are in the higher orders of Judaism, they know what they really mean when they say Abraham was the first Jew. Now, was Abraham the first Jew in the sense of from the common layman? No, he wasn't, because we know that the word Jew doesn't even exist in the Ivrit or in the Hebrew language. Okay? We know that there is no direct translation. And also there is no J in the Hebrew language. Okay? But then we say that the word Jew is a corruption for Yehovah, Yehuda, Judah, right? Which we say is the fourth son, okay, of who? Yaakov, Jacob, correct? Okay. So why is Abraham being called the first Jew if Bereshit or Bereshit or Genesis chapter 14:13 clearly states that he is Ha-Ivri? He's a Hebrew, okay? Cool. Yeah, he's definitely a Hebrew. But why do they keep saying he's a Jew? Well, let me give you the hidden understanding of that, and we're going to get into that. Well, in India, there was a group of Hebrews known as Yadavas, okay, or Yahowatas, okay? That was a tribe. This is the tribe that Abraham came from out of. This group of Hebrews that Abraham came out of was known as Yahowata, or Yahawada, or Yadavas. So not Isaac, but Jacob named Judah after his great-grandfather's tribe. There was a tribe of Judah before Judah was even born. We're going to get into that. That's a fact. When you read the book Anti-Calypsis by Sir Godfrey Higgins, he proves that in the Indian records that there was a tribe called Yehuda, Judah, that existed before the tribe of Judah that came by way of Jacob's fourth son that lived in India. That was the tribe that Abraham came from. We're getting to that as we continue on. Go to the next slide, Brother Bassam. Because for us to understand Hebrew symbols, we have to understand the history around them, so then we can get an idea of the symbols that are going to be brought forth to the people.
You're teaching, good brother, you're teaching.
A lot of people don't know that there was a tribe of Judah before the tribe of Judah from Jacob's son, before Jacob's son. I'm going to show y'all this in the records. Y'all, I'm going to give y'all the verses, the sources, everything that y'all can go to and find this out. So now here is another map of ancient Lemuria in the same location. These are different maps conveying the same thing. So this is not a myth or a fantasy, and this is not to disassociate with Africa. That's not true. This is to take the power to define and bring it back into our own hands. Because for so long, Europeans been using the power to define by the way of the spiritual Magna Carta to control the masses of people so everybody can be subjugated into them, when the whole planet belongs to us, not just a piece of real estate. Even though Israel is the center, is our homeland. But shoot, I take it deep and take it somewhere else. Because if you're talking Israel, we talking about also a mind state. Okay? To be a powerful prince, you must operate in a certain mind state. The whole planet itself originally, in that retrospect, in that spiritual sense, would be Israel. Even though technically, if we talk it on a surface level, Israel would be from the Nile to the Euphrates, or what we know as Iraq, as Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Israel, and Palestine. But we know when we start going on under the surface and we start dealing with deeper levels, the whole planet belongs to us. Because remember, when you read in Bereshit, what it say in verses 27 to 28 to 29, it say, be fruitful, multiply, be many, and fill the earth and maintain it. So Yisrael was to fill the earth in righteousness. Okay? That was our objective. That was our motive. That's how we were to manifest ourselves unto the nations of the earth. This is how we were to operate, to manifest righteousness by way of Torah constitution to the earth amongst all the nations. So we see right there another map conveying the same idea. Okay? So we don't want to get fixated in just visualizing a certain area, when in fact we know that the whole planet belongs to us. Go to the next slide. The reason why I'm showing you this right here, because I need the family to understand and to realize.
So you can go to Bereshit of Genesis chapter 15, 18, and you'll see that our landmass was from the Great River Egypt to the Euphrates, which was 4,200 miles. So you're talking about where the Nile drops in Lake Victoria in Uganda, shooting all the way to Iraq. All that's our land. But you got anything to say so far about the presentation? Are you enjoying it, Mikael? My PowerPoint?
Yeah, good brother. This is you know, a very powerful lesson so far. You know what I mean? Especially, you know, you bringing forth information that there was a tribe of, you know, Yahudim before the one that we know biblically, and then also too, I mean, there's several different things, but yes, it's a powerful presentation. Yes. So again, I know you're gonna get to it in the presentation. Well, I'm looking forward to it, brother. I'm not even gonna hold you up.
Right. No, but if you got something to ask, that you can ask.
Well, how did you come into that? Knowing that there was a you know, a tribe of Judah before the biblical Judah is presented.
That's interesting. Basically, I was reading a book called Anti-Calypsis, volume 1 and 2 by Sir Godfrey Higgins, and he was opening up or expressing some ancient Indus Valley records about a tribe of Judah known as Yadavas, which was a pre-existing tribe that came before the tribe of Judah that we know through Jacob's fourth son. And Jacob named his fourth son Yehuda after the Yadavas, to remind them from the tribe of which Abraham come from. So you have the tribe of Judah that comes by the way of Judah through Jacob's son. And then you got the Yadava tribe from which Abraham came from. And this gives us a richer and greater history as Hebrew Israelite sovereign nationals, because for a long time, we only been looking at 2166 BCE. Some people try to date it 1900 BCE, but from our calculation at the Mighty Hebrew University, Abraham was born 2166 BCE, and he was an ex-Brahmin that practiced a form of Brahmanism, a Hinduism. And
From that, he separated himself from that part of his Aryan lineage. Now, remember, the original Aryans were black. We will get into that as we continue on. It only meant noble warrior. So that's make that clear. So it was really defining the caste system, which later on took racial overtones by the Euro Gentiles that hijacked the word Aryan, also hijacked the swastika. That's why when you look at a lot of the kung fu movies, which you see in the Shaolin Temple, swastikas. But getting back to the point, yeah, that's how I came with that knowledge of finding out that there was a pre-existing tribe of Judah through the histories of Sir Godfrey Higgins' book, Anacalypsis. Hallelujah. That, my sources. This book right here is known as Legends of Atlantis and Lost Lemuria, and this is a part of the book club at the Mighty Hebrew University by W. Scott Elliott. This man was way before his time. He wrote this book in the early 1900s, and he proves that ancient Lemuria as well as Atlantis did exist, and it was developed and manifested by what you would consider women. Okay, so even in his writings, and we know at that time it was very racist in the late 1800s, early 19th century, and all that. It was very racist, and this man had the guts, which he was a part of the Theosophical Society by way of Madam H.P. Blavatsky, was manifesting that these people were black. Go to the next slide. Because that's an excellent book. If you don't have the book,
that is a great book. Tribal Minister, if pardon the interruption, if I may. I want to let the family know that this is a great book. This is also one of the top 10 books that the Mighty Hebrew recommends, and he's labeled them a must read. It is part of the Mighty Hebrews book club, which can be found at www.themightyhebrew.com. I also want to let the people know, because I've received a lot of emails and a lot of questions. We are working on the book reviews. We are working on the book club. It's another area of the website. I don't do this full time. You know, I have a job, I have a career. The Mighty Hebrew works full time, and he's doing the best he can to spend his free time with his family. Also add new features and new content to the website. So please be patient. We will definitely not leave you hanging. But the book reviews of the books listed in the book club, they are definitely coming very, very soon. We are also working on the downloads, the PDFs, and we're also working on trying to make these books available for anybody that wants to purchase them through drop shipping. And maybe the Mighty Hebrew can speak briefly on it, you know, if he chooses to now or at the end of the presentation. A lot of these books are very, very expensive. And even if you have the money to buy them, they are very rare and they are not readily available, especially in the United States. So we're trying to get them uploaded to the website, maybe as an ebook, a download, the PDF. We're trying to take certain chapters and information that we feel is the most important and put it up on the website. But we won't leave you guys hanging, and we're definitely working on it. Take it away, good brother.
Absolutely. Go to the next slide as I'm talking, and as Brother Bassem said, you know, it's definitely hard pressed right now. We're working tirelessly, you know, trying to get all this together. It's coming, as everybody know. Even my book, Our True History, The Diaspora and Our Freedom, is complete. It's done. You know, I seen one, one of my books. It was pressed, and I didn't like what they did, Lulu, what they did with my book. It was like so many misprints. So now I'm looking for a better company production. I found them. They're a group of Israelites. I won't say their names just yet. But right now, this right here, that is about to be read because it's small. Bassem, if you don't mind, could you read that real quick for me? And I will stop you briefly because where I'm at with my phone right now, because I had to get off my tablet
No problem.
because it wasn't fully charged. Could you read that to me?
Yeah, no problem. I hit the wrong button. 1 second. Yeah, I can read it. No problem, good brother. The third root race, the Lemurian, was black and lived in Lemuria.
Stop right there. Stop right there, for example. Stop right there, excuse me, for a second. Now, this right here, if he reads underneath the map, could you read underneath the map in blue so everybody can hear that portion real quick? What's underneath the map?
Yeah, it says map of Lemuria superimposed over the modern continents from William Scott Elliott, The Story of Atlantis and Lost Lemuria.
Stop. So this, even though this was taken from Wikipedia, and we know a lot of people say Wikipedia is not a good source because people can put anything they want up there. That's true. Anybody can put whatever they want up there. But as y'all can clearly see, I just showed y'all the book, and Wikipedia, or whoever posted this up on Wikipedia, clearly got this information from this specific book. So we're not concerned about Wikipedia. We're only concerned about the source from which it came from. So Basim disproved by way of where the source came from. Start from the beginning again. What color did they say that the Lemurians were? Could you read?
Indeed, says they were black and lived in Lemuria.
Okay, so it just said right there that these people were quote unquote a black people and they lived in Lemuria. Continue to read.
The esoteric name of Lemuria is Shamalai. Lemuria, according to Theosophists, existed in a large part of what is now the Indian Ocean, including Australia and extending into the South Pacific Sea. Its last remnants are the Australian continent, the island of New Guinea, and the island of Madagascar.
Stop. So now they're confirming the maps that we just showed you. Remember, Madagascar was connected to that. We just seen it with the maps. So thus far, everything that we've been showing is aligning with what we're saying. Now, we wonder, where are you getting this information from? Showing you first historically that the historians, the secret societies, all of them, they're telling this story, but they're not actually telling you that they got this information from archaic symbolism. They're not telling you this. They're making it seem as though that they're getting the information only from what they discovered. That's partially true, but that's not the absolute. Before you can go hunting, you must have some type of map or roadway to lead you to the hunt. And what they did was use these archaic symbols to find out this information. And I'm going to give you this information as well. So they will no longer be so-called the custodians of this historical reality. Okay? This is what makes the Hebrews so important, because the Hebrews were the ones that were told, where you see all over where it says the Lord God said thus and thus, all throughout the scripture. Yeah, that's true that Yahweh Elohim, conveyed this to our people. But those that are of higher learning and higher understanding understand sometimes that Yahweh Elohim or Elohim, or quote unquote the Lord God, is also a collective group of wise men and women that give appointed missions to people. Like, let's say, for instance, if I am a representative of the Creator and I tell Basim to go thus and thus and do thus and thus. Okay. And then the scribes write, Yahweh Elohim told Basim thus and thus and thus. Now, yeah, in essence, it goes back to the creator. But on the surface level, there are representatives on earth. And as we continue within the Mighty Hebrew University, we're going to see that Yahweh Elohim, or Yehovah Elohim, or quote unquote, the Lord God. The reason I'm saying quote unquote, because they're pagan titles. You're going to see it's a collective of henotheistic people or beings that understood the right path by way of Torah constitution. Continue on, brother. Reed.
Indeed. Lemuria sank gradually, as was eventually destroyed by insistently erupting volcanoes. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, it was thought by geologists that the age of the Earth was only about 200 million years, because radioactive dating had not come into use. So the geological epochs were believed to have occurred at a much later time than is thought to be the case today. According to traditional theosophy, the Lemurian root race began 34.5 million years ago in the middle of what was then believed to be the Jurassic. Thus, the people of Lemuria coexisted with the dinosaurs. The Lemurian race was much taller and bigger than our current race. The first three subraces of the Lemurians reproduced by laying eggs, but the fourth subrace, beginning 16.5 million years ago, began to reproduce like modern humans. As Lemuria—
Stop. One might say, damn, Mighty Hebrew, you are out of your mind believing something like that. There's an argument in the Black conscious community as well as the Hebrew Israelite community, okay? The Black conscious community, like my good brother, much respect to my good brother like Young Pharaoh, Brother Polite, different brothers like that, that acknowledge that the Black woman is God and she was on the planet first. Then you have some Hebrew Israelites, I won't say all, but before I go there, this is not the whole entire Black conscious community. Let me correct it. This is only segments of the Black conscious community that believe that the Black woman was on the planet first, before man was on the planet, okay? Such as good brothers as Young Pharaoh, giving props to Young Pharaoh, Brother Polite, giving them props. You know, I'm not here to disrespect anybody.
Indeed.
But I'm just only giving the fact. They believe that. Peace to my brother Natural Tahuti. He believes that as well. Brothers like that.
No doubt. Shout out to Natural Tahuti.
Absolutely.
Listen.
Mighty Hebrew. If you
Okay,
could,
yes.
if you could kind of explain just a little bit what it is that they're explaining when it comes to the woman was here first.
Yes, with people, well, it was developed by the way of Natural Tahuti, and what they believed before men was created, that females were created first on the planet, and the Y chromosome was a mutation of the double X. But let me throw something to you. You know that a man has an X and a Y chromosome. Are you with me? That makes a male child, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And the female is 2 X's. Well, a man gets his Y chromosome naturally from his father. Now, his X, they say it comes from his mother. I disagree with that. His X chromosome comes from his mother's father. Remember, the male is what holds the seed or the child and then goes into the woman. Now, 2 X's. Now, if it's a female, she gets an X from her father and she gets the other X from her mother's father. You see that? You see that right there? So
it all goes back to the patrilineal line of the male. But men and women came on the planet at the same time. They teach that women were on the planet for millions of years without the assistance of man. Well, what they fail to understand, if this woman was given birth without a man, then it wasn't a woman. It was neither male nor female, but an asexual being that had masculine and feminine polarities. Ha'adam means the firstborn of the first blood rising with outstretched arms. Some Hebrews teach that man was first, and then the rib was taken from out of man and created the woman. That's inaccurate. Ha'adam don't mean man. The word man goes back to the Sanskrit word manu, which means to think or thought. Ha'adam was an asexual being that had masculine and feminine polarities, which later became masculine and feminine sexes. When you go into Genesis chapter 2:7, the separation of the polarities into sexes come into being. So thus, both men and women came on the planet at the same time. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. I'm gonna get right back into this presentation real quick to everybody in the chat. Shout outs to you. Please give the video a thumbs up. You know, you can also share the video if you got, you know, the power and the will to do so. And then also too, if you want to, I'm gonna put the Cash App on here so that you can either support the channel or support the Mighty Hebrew. And most importantly, please send some love and some support to the Mighty Hebrew. Simply because, you know, it's a lot of work that goes into this. The brothers in Tanzania, Africa, you know, things are not the same as they are here in the Americas. You know what I mean? Even though life is much simpler there, you know what I mean? It still takes a lot of work, you know, and effort to do this type of work, y'all. So again, Shabbat Shalom to everybody in the chat. We're going to get back to the presentation.
Real quick, I'm actually going to include the link in the information. There's only one way to donate to Brother Natural Tahuti, and that's through www.jpay.com. It is the only way you can send him money, and that's the only website that the state of Pennsylvania Department of Prisons, the Federal Bureau of Prisons in Pennsylvania deals with. So shout out to Natural Tahuti. I've already donated. Take it away, brother.
Absolutely. Giving shout outs once again to Natural Tahuti, a close brother of mine, you know, one that sat on the couch with me. I was one of the first, you know, OG Hebrews to go up there at the House of Consciousness, have a constructive dialogue with my brother Natural Tahuti, as well as Sarah Suit and Seti. Give a shout out to Sarah Suit and Seti. But getting back to my point, so they acknowledged that the black woman was first. Okay, that's good. Then you go into segments of the Hebrew Israelite community. They believe that the black man was first, and then woman came about. But then I say to myself, damn, when you're dealing in polarity, one can't exist without the other. So I started to do more research on archaic Hebrew symbolism, as well as the other archaic records that existed. And I said, damn, Adam. Everybody says, yeah, you know, Adam was the first man. Adam means man. So once I start getting deep into the Hebrew, Adam doesn't even mean man. It doesn't even mean man. The word man goes back to a Sanskrit word, menu or manu, which means to think or thought. The word Adam, when you break down the word Adam, it has three Hebrew letters. You have in ancient Hebrew, they pronounce them as A, Da, and Ma. In modern Sephardic Hebrew, it would be Aleph, Dalith, and Mim. The Aleph symbolizes an ox head. It symbolizes strength, first in rank. Okay? Then you have the Dalith. It symbolizes a door or a pathway. And then you have the Mim. it symbolizes water or the blood of grapes. When you put the Daleth and the Meme together, you get Dam, which means blood. So now you have the Aleph and the Dam, or the Adam. You have firstborn or first blood. So it causes Adam to be neutral in a sense of not being defined as a man or a woman, but an asexual androgynistic being that had both male and female principles or polarities. Okay? This was the first. It wasn't a man or a woman. So now when you start talking about self-reproduction, we teach at the Mighty Hebrew University that self-reproduction came by way of sweating or through Aporeous stages. And what would happen when this being or this asexual androgynistic being would sweat, the sweat would then in turn get hardened and turn into like a hard shell. And then in turn, born life. As time went on, now you go into Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. It talks about how the Adam. And notice in the Ivrit, it don't say Adam, it says Ha-Adam. Ha in Hebrew is a definite article. So it's talking about the firstborn or the first blood, okay? This firstborn or this first blood went into a deep sleep. The deep sleep is strictly esoteric. It is not literal. The sleep is only talking about a period of time of the separation of the polarities because one started to dominate the other. So in this process, separation had to come. And when separation came, now you have Ish and Isha. Now you have man and woman 16.5 million years ago. Prior to that, it was an asexual androgynistic being. It wasn't a man, it wasn't a woman. It was a being that can't be defined because remember, a man is defined by what we see today. A woman is defined as to what we see today. So in that sense, the very first beings that was on this planet wasn't man or woman in the sense of how we define it today, but it held them polarities. And when the separation of man and woman, as we know today, that means man and woman came on the planet at the same time. One wasn't before the other. They were here at the same time, or they became separated at the same time. So we don't have to argue at the Mighty Hebrew University who came first, man or woman or woman or man. We understand that in polarity, there has to always be an opposite. If there's an in, there's an out. If there's an up, there's a down. If there's a left, there's a right. If there's a prince, there's a princess. If there's a king, there's a queen. It's that simple. We do not have to argue about who came first. We understand that they came here at the same time. Continue to read where you left off at, Brother Bassem.
Sure thing. It says, as Lemuria was slowly submerged due to volcanic eruptions, the Lemurians colonized the areas surrounding Lemuria, i.e. Africa, southern India, and the East Indies. The descendants...
Stop. So now we talking about colonization. We talking about Africa was a colony. That's what we talking about. Okay? We talking about East India, what we know as the Indus Valley. These were colonies of ancient Lemuria. These were colonies. These weren't the beginnings of civilization. And the reason why I'm bringing this back into focus, because we cannot prove that Lucy was originally from Ethiopia. Just because they found her bones there, that don't mean she was from there. Now, I'm not saying she could have been from Southern Africa for all we know. She could have been from Eastern Africa. The whole point is the traditions of the archaic records is showing us that these areas were colonies that were colonized by the ancient Lemurians. Continue on.
The descendants of the Lemurian root race, according to traditional theosophy, include the Capioid race, the Congoid race, the Dravidians, and the Australoid race.
Go to the next slide. That's interesting. So a lot of people, let me clear this up, because a lot of people will say, well, you're quoting from the Theosophical Society, one of your sources. Wasn't Madame Blavatsky a racist? No, she wasn't. She was not a racist, okay? Why? Because she used the word Aryan, or because, you know, in some of her writings, you'll see the word Aryan, or because she talked in terms about white brotherhood and, you know, black as in death and things like that. So in our minds, we think racism. Well, let me clarify some things to you. First of all, when it talks about the white brotherhood, okay, when you read these things, it's only talking about those that were enlightened in a certain state of consciousness that they was working with. The black arts, or when they talk black, when the people was dealing in blackness, when you read in these old writings, 19th century writings, it conveys a certain type of mind state, okay? And the word Aryan is a Sanskrit word, Aryan, which clearly only means, okay, it only means nobleman. So when somebody says, this is racist, this is that, we got to understand the context and content of what is being conveyed. One of the books to read that you can find out this is not true is all her books. The Secret Doctrine, Volume 1 and 2, Isis Unveiled, Volume 1 and 2, Volume 1 and 2. You can go now. Volume 1 and 2. So to say all that is to say that that is not true. She conveyed that the very first humans were original black people, and she made that clear, okay? And if you read all her writings, that was made clear. So now we're right here in Hebrew Anthropogenesis 101, Eden Lemuria. One of the ancient names is Mu, okay? A couple good books to read on Mu. One is called The Lost Continent of Mu by Churchwood. And then you have another book called The Children of Mu. I advise everybody, written by the same author, I advise everybody that is in seeking that type of understanding to go read them two books, okay? And then you have another word called Goanna. That's another ancient name for ancient Lemuria. In Atlantis, okay, and their international global connection, you're going to find out the word for Atlantis is Aklan, which is ATLAN or ATL. You know, you hear brothers to this day talk about, yeah, you know, I'm from the ATL. They don't even know that they're actually talking about the ancient name of the continent that they're dwelling on. There are some Native American tribes that actually called the whole continent Atlanta.
Stop it.
We're getting to that in a second.
So the oldest name we can go to is Patala or Atala, and then Atala developed to Aklan. That's all I wanted to say. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Hey, listen, that's the end of the first half. Let's go ahead and keep it rolling, Mighty Hebrew. I know I sent you a message that I'm kind of, you know what I mean, in the middle of something, but let's go ahead and keep it rolling because this is very powerful and I don't want to shortchange the people. Okay,
You sure you want to keep it rolling?
let's keep it rolling.
Okay. Okay.
All
Go
right.
ahead. Yup. Continue.
Now we're talking about Lemuria and where Lemuria was stationed at. Okay. Now, we know at this time there wasn't no Kemet, for much of Africa was underwater. We're about to show you these maps. And to continue on, you at Madagascar and see.
Stop it. Oh, okay. Okay. So this is the second part right here, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Continue. Hallelujah.
Ceylon and Sumatra, that was all together with ancient Lemuria. The ancient continent also reached as far as India and Asia Minor. Atlantis at this time didn't assume its proportions that it would later attain. Now, the Malayas came from Ghana, Western Africa, which was part of the Edenic Lemurian continent and civilization. Some people pronounce them as the Romalayas, or just the R can be silent. So some people say Malayas. And their complexion was mahogany black.
At the Mighty Hebrew University, the oldest pronunciation we can come up with was Romalhos. And they came from the Madagascar area, and pushed up to the eye of the Sahara in Ghana, the eye of the Sahara being around Morocco, to Ghana, and created the Patala or the Akalan Empire or the Atlantean Empire, which stretched to the city of the Golden Gates, South America. Continue on.
And their height would reach between 10 to 12 feet. I even have more ancient information that says even further ancient times, we even reached as far as 27 feet. So number one, the first image, because I said earlier about Zaquin Hoshua Amariel, he only gave two maps, the one that you see Eden as a globe and then the breakdown. So I want to, let people know that this was a courtesy from Zaquin Hoshua Amariel, from Tellerad Yisrael, the founder of the true land of Zion in Tellerad, Israel. I want to give a shout out to all the Hebrew Israelites that live in Tellerad, Israel, as well as Dimona. Okay. So he gives you the first image that we're about to get into of our plane of existence before the great volcanic cataclysm, destruction of ancient Lemuria, and the four cataclysms or catastrophic floods of ancient Atlantis. What many that read the Bible fail to understand is that there is, next slide, Brother Bassem. Now there is a difference between the Garden of Eden and Eden, as we can clearly see inside the scripture and with the globe that we're going to look over, okay, that there was, that was sent to me directly from Zaquin Hoshua Mariel from Tellerad, Israel. Eden is the whole planet. You can go to verify that in the scriptures. You can go to Ezekiel chapter 36, verses 33 to 35, Ezekiel 20, verse 6, Ezekiel 14, 13 to 14, 1 Kings 11, 36, Isaiah 1, 29 to 30, Ecclesiasticus 24, 31, 427 in the Apocrypha, and 2nd Ezra 5, 24 to 25. 2. The second image is the first map of Atlantis. Now we're talking roughly 1 million BCE. Okay, we're going to get into that. If you can go to the first map, if you can hit that real fast, Bassem, so the people can see, and then come right back to there. Okay, so now you see a map of Atlantis. Now notice, we're talking roughly right here, 1 million BCE. Okay, and as you can clearly see, the white signifies water over the continents. Now, if you notice, look at Africa in the center. You see water over it. So we know that when there were civilizations in existence at this time, okay, that a lot of Africa was underwater. So now they can see that image. Notice, you know, in the other areas surrounding it, you see that there isn't water, okay? So now go back where you just left off. So the second image of the first map of Atlantis, we're talking about 1 million BCE up to 850,000 BCE, when the first Atlantean catastrophic or cataclysm occurred during the Paleogene age. The Atlantean continent extended from a few degrees east of Iceland all the way to Rio de Janeiro. It embraced Texas. Okay, go ahead, keep going. Next slide. The Gulf of Mexico, the southern and eastern parts of the United States, Labrador, and the area from there to Ireland, Scotland, and a small portion of the north of England. It reached also from Brazil to the African Gold Coast. 3. The third image of the second map below is the end result of the first flood catastrophic or cataclysm. It was Eden's, or the delightful earth, surface mass from 800,000 BCE to 200,000 BCE. And as time passed within space, a second flood catastrophic or cataclysm took shape 200,000 BCE, thus sinking Atlantis the second time, or a second time. Now go to the next map, Brother Bassam. Okay, so now what you're looking at is Atlantis now, after that second flood. Now look at Africa now. It's starting to develop more and more. Okay, you see it. You see the difference from the first map to this map. The black parts or the gray parts are showing now landmass. The white part is symbolized as water over it, as you can clearly see. Now go back to where you left off at. 4, the fourth image of the third map below is from 200,000 BCE to 80,000 BCE, showing the third flood catastrophic or cataclysm and the splitting of Atlantis into 2 portions. Go to the next part, Bassam. You got Ruta and you got Datia. Note that in this map, we can clearly see the submergence of Kemet. This flood catastrophic or cataclysm took place 75,025 BCE. As a result of it, Datia, the southern island, almost vanished. Ruta was reduced to a small island known as Persepolis, which became stationed or situated at the center of the Atlantic Ocean. Now go to that map, right? That next map, Brother Bassam, so the family can see. Okay?
Stop it.
Okay. So
Stop it.
Now you see your third map.
So it's a couple of pronunciations. Some people pronounce it Proximitas, some pronounce it Postadonis, some pronounce it as Poseitis. So there's a variety of ways. At the Mighty Hebrew University, we say Postadonis, but you got, Poseitis and Proximitas, but it's all the same place, which the original name was Ruta. The Greeks called it Postadonis. Keep going on.
Which is looking at 200,000 BCE to 80,000 BCE, as you can clearly see. Okay. And you see, okay, as we get to the next map, you're going to see the 2 islands. Okay. Matter of fact, yeah, is that the fourth map? Let me see. Okay, that's the fourth map. And you see Ruta and Datia. So you see these floods taking place. So there's a lot of things going on with the earth changing over the years. So again, we're showing improving. Now look at the map of Africa. Look at how Kemet is underwater. At this time, Ethiopia is an island. You see it. Ethiopia is just an island. So there's things going on around the globe. Okay. Now, what do we see? 5, the fifth image of the fourth map is from 80,000 BCE into the submergence of Proximidus in 9,564 BCE. This is the portion of Atlantis that Plato spoke about in his writings 500 BCE. There are 5 ancient records that verify this fact. Okay, now go to the last map. Go to the map now so the people can see. There it is right there. Blow it up a little bit so the people can see. Now, this is what you see here. Now, this shouldn't be Silicon. This shouldn't be hard pressed, because even when you go into the ancient Kemetic records, they say out of 8 miles that Kemet was underwater. So you see it right here. Look at the map. Kemet was underwater, but guess what? Civilization was still going on all around Kemet. Okay, so we know for a fact that Kemet is not the foundation of civilization. And furthermore, even though we're calling this area Kemet, Kemet is a product or a byproduct from the descendants of Ham, who recolonized that area. The Kemetian or the Kamau people go by way of Minis/Mitzrayim. Okay. Prior to that, there was no Kemet, but there was landmass there, different names, different people, etc., etc. Continue on. Go back to the information. Okay. So there are 5 ancient records that verify this as fact. 1, naturally, the Tanakh and the story of Noah and the flood. Okay. Go ahead. 2, go back. Yes, go back. 2, archaeologists give the date to the flood and Ur of the Chaldeans as 9,564 BCE. 3, the Mayan. Okay, you got the Mayan manuscripts of Yucatan of 2,500 years ago, translated by Lee Progin, gives the following description of the submergence of Perseminus, the last portion of Atlantis. It reads, in the year 6, or in the year of 6 Kan, in the 11th Mulak, in the Zak, there occurred terrible earthquakes, which continued without interruption until the 13th Shin. The country of the hills was covered by mud. The land of Mu, or Lumeria, was sacrificed, being twice uphaven. It suddenly disappeared during the night, the basin being continually sinking by volcanic forces being confined. These caused the land to sink and to rise several times, and in various places at, next slide, last, the surface gave way, and 10 countries were torn asunder and scattered, unable to stand the force of the convulsions. They sank with 64 million of their inhabitants, 8,060 years before the writing of this book. Now, when this was being conveyed, they said that that was 8,060 years before that book was written. It was written 2,500 years ago. When you add that up, it comes up to 9,564 BCE. Also in the later find by A.M. Blahnik of an ancient Mayan manuscript known as the Book of Kilam Balam, it reads, and then every blow came the waters, the sky fell down, and the dry land sunk. Also, you can go to Plato, 500 BCE. Also, 5, you can go to the Hindu Puranas. Next one. Sources. 1, From Babylon to Timbuktu, A History of the Ancient Black Races, including the Black Hebrews by Rudolph R. Windsor. 2, The History of Herodotus, translated by George Wallison, pages 256 to 263. 3, The Earth and Its Cycles, a comparison between the results of modern geological and archaeological research and the statements of the secret doctrine by E.W. Preston and E.L. Gardner. 4, Legends of Atlantis and Lost Lemuria by W. Scott Elliott. 5, Lecture Notes of the School of the Wisdom by Godfrey Hudson. 6, The Book of God, an encyclopedia of proof that the black man is God by True Islam. 7, The Secret Doctrine in Israel by A.E. White. 8, Esoteric Buddhism by A.P. Sinnett. 9, Where Were You Before the Tree of Life, volumes 1 and 2 by Peter Farley. 10, An Imitation of Life by Ben Ami. 11, Helping You Conceptualize the New Heaven and the New Earth, lecture by Dr. Kazriel Ben Yahuda, Dean of the School of the Prophets Institute, Dimona, Israel, Northeastern Africa. 12, The Hebrew English Tanakh, JPS. So we already showed you the first map, as you can clearly see, which is a courtesy of the Mariel family, or Hoshua Mariel. This is Eden before the flood. The whole planet was Eden. The garden, as you can see right there, you have the garden, Eden. Okay, so they were two different things. Next map. You could just keep going in the same pace.
Okay. After the map, after this one that we just showed, it goes to the 4 that we already covered.
Right. So keep going.
And then this is the first slide after that, your synopsis,
Okay,
brother.
So now we're going to be dealing with a brief synopsis. The true origins of the ancient Hebrews, was it in India or was it in Mesopotamia? Hebrew Anthropogenesis 101. Again, this is giving all praise and honor to Yahweh, the supreme, intelligent, powerful one of our forefathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. This is not to step on anybody's toes. A lot of people look at Sumeria as the origin of civilization. A lot of people look at Kush or Ethiopia or Kemet as the origin of civilization. Me, personally, I look at the oldest civilization because there's a difference from original verse oldest. The oldest civilization on this planet, from my research, is in fact the Indus Valley. So we're going to start off at the first verse of Beta Ishyat, which is ancient Hebrew for the modern Hebrew term Bereshit, which means beginnings, or in a beginning, miscalled Genesis 11:1-2, which reads on this wise: and the whole earth was of one language and of one speech, and it came to pass as they journeyed from the east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar or Sumer, and they dwelt there. Now notice, Salah. Notice it said that it came past that they journeyed from the east of Sunar or Sumer, or what we know as Iraq, is in fact the Indus Valley, India. Okay. Now we're going to go to the second verse, Bereshit or Bereshit, miscalled Genesis 25:6, which reads, to the sons of his concubines, Abraham gave gifts while he was still alive, and he sent them away, son Isaac, eastward to the land of the east. Some people, okay, look at that as being Arabia. But as we continue, you're going to clearly see the east is clearly India. Okay, Sila. Third verse, Malachim, Kings 5:10 reads, Solomon's wisdom surpassed the wisdom of the children of the east. They're clearly talking about India. The east is India, greater India. That's what that's talking about. Okay. This is why you got the east and then you got the far east. Okay. The east here is clearly India. For many years, I've taught and still teach a very controversial subject that is based on the origins of the original Hebrews. Many Hebrew Israelites trace the ancient Hebrews. Hit the next one, Brother Bassam. Origins back to ancient Mesopotamia and Shinar or Sumer. I beg to differ. I trace the ancient Hebrews back to the east, which is India, the oldest, not original, but oldest. Oldest does not mean original, but the oldest civilization in the world, even older than Sumer and Kemet. I teach that both Sumer and Kemet were in fact colonies from out of the Indus Kush Valley Empire. We also have the classical historians such as Flavius Josephus and his masterpiece, The Antiquities of the Jews, book 122, quoting Aristotle, 384 BCE to 322 BCE, who stated on record that the Hebrews are derived from Indian or Brahmin philosophers out of India known as the Kalani or the Kalani. Go ahead to the next one. That's right. That's gay. See, for a long time, family, right? You know, a lot of people, you know, they always visualize me staying neutral, you know, because I never expounded on how I viewed our history as Hebrews. I kept it neutral based on Hebrew Israelite sovereign nationalistic reasons. But this truth, a lot of people don't know. So this is why academically, you know, you have some Hebrew camps that can easily be destroyed because by outside factors, because they don't have the solid, concrete understanding of our ancient history. Our ancient history is a deep and rich history that all need to know about. As we continue, okay, we see that Clarius of Salo was a student in Aristotle's school, and his book, De Somno, he breaks it down how Aristotle found out about this information. Okay, I'm going to try to pronounce this right. Megasthenes was an ambassador of Seleucus in the first of Syria to India before the latter's death in 288 BCE. Megasthenes wrote that the Hebrews Now listen to what they saying. This is classical writers saying this, that the Hebrews were an Indian tribe, okay, from India, or sect called Kalani. Except for the spelling, he agreed with Aristotle and Clarius. Sir Godfrey Higgins' masterpiece, Writing in Eclipses, Volume 1, page 400, states that, now watch this, family. I'm about to throw something at y'all, so watch. Again, Sir Godfrey Higgins' masterpiece, Writing in Eclipses, Volume 1, page 400, states that the ore of the Chaldees in Genesis 11:10-32 should not be confused with the 7th century BCE ore of the Chaldeans in Mesopotamia. Continue on, Brother Bassem. Four, Mr. Higgins and many other scholars from classical to contemporary have pointed out about the ore of the Chaldeans within the Indus Valley that existed thousands of years before the 12th century BCE Chaldea and Mesopotamia. Sir Godfrey Higgins states that it is actually Chaldiva, or the set apart cause, an Indus Valley Brahminical caste of India, in the profound book Moses y los Extraterrestres. Mexican author Thomas Dirati states, Batara, a region of ancient Afghanistan, was the location or the locality of a prototypical, as you see, Jewish, really Hebrew, nation called, come on with it, Yehuda or Yaguda, also called or Yehuda or Yaguda, or meant place or town. Therefore, the Bible was correct in stating that Abraham came from Ur of the Chaldeans. The Chaldeans, more correctly, Chaldiva, holy cows, were or was not the name of Pacific ethnicity of the ancient Hindu Brahminical priestly caste who lived in what are now Afghanistan, Pakistan, and the Indian state of Kashmir. So historically, there were two Ur of Chaldeans, one in Mesopotamia and another one in India. The one in India existed before the one in Mesopotamia. Now, in the work of Martin Hall, PhD, entitled, because, you know, a lot of people say Hebrews don't deal with scholarship. They don't give you no sources. They don't do this. They don't do that. All throughout the presentation so far, you see that I'm giving primary sources. The sacred language, writings, and religions of the Perseus, we read on page 16. The Magi, or the Magi, are said to have called their religion Kish Abraham. They traced their religious books back to Abraham, who was believed to have, come on, brought them from heaven. On page 396 of Eclipses, Volume 1, Sir Godfrey Higgins states, the Arabian historians contend that Brahma and Abraham, their ancestor, are the same person. The Persians generally call Abraham, Zerogos. Cyrus considered the religion of the Jews, meaning Israelites, the same as his on the Hindus, or excuse me, as his own. The Hindus must have come from Abraham or the Israelites from Brahman. The Buddhists, this is funny, but it's true. The Buddhists say that their records show the ancient Proto-Hebrews, who they call the Abrahamians, spoke what they call Abraham, a derivative form of Bharata, which comes from the Sanskrit root word Brara, also manifested the words Abraham, Iber, Ibare, Ibari, and Ibrahim. We also must, take note that the word Hebrew has the root word Ibar, Avrid, Iber, which means my crossing or my past as an ancient or from beyond. It doesn't mean one who crosses over. It means what I just showed you, okay? So in essence, the word Hebrew means my ancient past. It does not mean one who crosses over. In the spiritual book known as the Zen, Avesta, we see that the ancient Elamites or Persians and the modern day Parsis, the Parsis, state that their belief system was brought from Abraham. I thought that there was no historical documentation of our ancestors. I mean, we're going into that talk about us. We're going into Persian records that's talking about us. We're going to all these records. Why haven't those that say that these scholars bring this information to our people? Okay, right there. So I'm going to read this. For Mr. Higgins and many other scholars from classical to contemporary have pointed out about the Ur of the Chaldeans within the Indus Valley, India, that existed thousands of years before the 7th century BCE Chaldea of Mesopotamia. Sir Godfrey Higgins states that it is actually Chaldea, or the set apart cause, a Indus Valley Brahmanical caste of India. In the profound book which we just read, it clearly states, because it's a long name, okay, in Spanish, but we just read. Go to the next one, because we're dealing with the region in ancient Afghanistan. Okay, all this we just read records from both the Hindu Brahmins and from the Persian Magi. If one is to read what is known as the Hindu Matsya Purana, Fish Chronicle, it speaks clearly about the sons of Noah as we see, which reads, now watch this, 2 Sat Yavaran, Noah, that the sovereign of the whole earth were born 3 sons, the eldest Shem, then Ham, and thirdly,
Stop it.
Yafeti,
Stop it, my lord.
or Japheth.
So, I always hear, show us information outside the Bible about the sons of Noah. Am I not doing this right now, Mikael?
Okay.
I'm showing the sons of Noah outside of the Bible, that there are other manuscripts that coincide with the Tanakh, with the Torah. So when you hear the Black conscious community or anybody say, oh, you can't find that nowhere but in the Bible, as we can clearly see, there's other manuscripts confirming what we're saying. Continue on.
By name, it says, they were all men of good morals, excellent in virtue and virtuous deeds, skill in the use of weapons to strike with, or to be throne, brave men eager for victory in battle. But Noah, as we can clearly see, being continuously delighted with devout meditation and seeing his sons fit for dominion, lay upon them the next one, burden of government. West, he remained honoring and satisfying the gods, the priests, and can one day, by the act of destiny, the king having drunk mead. So the Hindu records is saying, recognizing Noah to be a king, became senseless and laid his sleep naked. Then was he seen by Ham, and by him when his two brothers called, to whom he said, what now has befallen, and what state is this our sire? These two, he was hidden and called to his senses again and again, having recovered his intellect and perfectly knowing what had passed, he cursed Ham, saying, thou shalt be a servant of servants. And since thou was a laughter in their presence, from laughter thou shalt acquire a name. Then he gave Ham or Ham the wide domain on the south to the snowy mountains, and to Japheth he gave all the north of the snowy mountains, but he, by the power of religious competition, attained supreme bliss. Now compare this with Genesis chapter 9. It is crystal clear that India must be researched much deeper by Hebrew Israelite sovereign nationals than what has been done, for it is part of our eternal heritage. Go to the next slide. Okay, that's the website. You can actually go to the Jewish Encyclopedia, identifies India as part of the Garden of Eden. A good book to read on that topic, so the family can see. I'm showing the family right now. Okay, hold up. So the family can clearly see. It's called The Way. This is a good book by Kohen Shalamin Ben Levi. It's a very excellent book. And as you can clearly see, I'm going to give y'all a view of the map, definition of Hebrew, Harapparya, the dynasty coming from out of India. So y'all can see that. He is one that subscribes to the same position that I'm subscribing, that the ancient Hebrews go back to India or the Indus Valley. Okay, go to the next slide, Brother Basil. Now we getting somewhere. So now, y'all see that right there. Now we getting into archaic symbolism. Now we going in. Okay, so let me go to my notes. Okay, so now, if you look carefully at this figure right here, okay, it's actually 1 to 14 figures, okay, and this right here is some interesting symbols that you can deal with the Nahar tablets, and they talk about the Al-Namu and their sources, okay. So when you look at the first archaic symbol, Okay, when you look at that first archaic symbol, it gives you a fine, straight, horizontal line. That's the symbol for space. So it's talking about space. Okay, a good book to read so it give you an in-depth understanding. It's called The Lost Continent of Mu by Churchwood. And he breaks it down when he even goes deeper. Now, when you look at the symbol, you should see 1B. You should see a 1B. And that symbolizes the seven-headed serpent moving in space. Okay, the surrounding circle is the universe. Now go to the second one. The second one is a wavy horizontal line, symbol for earthly waters. Okay. Now you go to the next one, 3. You see the circle is a picture of the sun. Okay, it's a picture of the sun. That's what you say. It's a picture of the sun. You know, giving honors to my Nashim, Gabaria Dania, as well as Malakia Bathsheba. You know, there's a picture of my queen right there. Hallelujah. Okay, so now, if you look at 3, it's going to be.
Stop. Yeah, that's my former Nashim. As y'all know, I'm married to Princess Etana, so I want to make that clear. That was my former Nashim. But go ahead, continue on.
A circle, which is the picture of the sun. Okay, the sun, you know, which is true in a lot of societies, that the sun became a collective symbol of all the attributes of what they consider the deity or the rootless one, even though in reality the sun is nothing but a lens of something greater behind it by way of vortexian power. We are getting it at in the future. Okay, we're getting it at in the future. So as we continue to read, okay, we should be dealing with, let me make sure, because I want to be on point. Okay, let me see. All right. So we read thus far. Let me go into my notes. You know, I gotta go into my notes because it's so extensive. This information is so extensive. So it has to be manifested correctly to the people. All right. So now when you look at the 4th image, if you look at that 4th image, now it gives you a fine vertical lines from what they consider the sun, symbolizing its forces, which are affinitive to the earth's light force, which being set in motion gives light upon the earth. A lot of people don't know, but the earth also has its light. A lot of people don't understand. They talk about the earth rotating on its axis by way of gravity and things like that. But we at the Mighty Hebrew University teach that each planet is actually surrounded by a vortex. Then you have the master vortex, which, as you look at the sun, that's not given the power. It's what's behind it, okay, which is the vortexian power that's connected to all the planets, okay? So we have an understanding of that. When you go to the 6th one, it's a vertical dotted lines from the sun, symbolizing its force, which are affinitive to the earth's life force. Now look at 6b. That symbolizes the sun's affinitive force striking the earth's life force in the cosmic eggs, which are in the water, and bringing them into life. Okay, so when you're looking at these archaic symbols. They're conveying a story of creation. It's not just dealing with just strictly, drawings, but there's a message behind it. Okay. So now when you look at, 6, as I said, it was the cosmic eggs which are on the land and hatching them into life. And as I said before, when you start talking about creation, man and woman came at the same time. We teach at the Mighty Hebrew University, and it might sound awkward to people, but by the way of the sweat coming from out of the Lemurian giants, it will harden into eggs, and man was hatching first. Well, not man, but this androgynous being called Adam, Ha-Adam, was being birthed like that until the creation of the separation of what we consider the sexes. Because remember, one physically dominated the other, while the other psychologically dominated. The physical domination came from the male. The psychological domination came from the female, which in turn split, and now you have man and woman. I'm going to stop there for 1 second to ask Brother Bassem something. Do you have any questions, Brother Bassem?
No, I don't, but I just want to let the audience know, not only am I enjoying this, Mighty Hebrew, you've done a great job breaking it down, because I've heard you speak on this before, and this gets so complex and very deep, you know what I mean? So there might have to be a part 3. I want to give a special shout out to the brother Judah Rising for his donation through the super chat. The brother said he's been waiting for part 2 since Tuesday night when he heard part 1 of this lecture, and that it was very informative. I also encourage everybody to go to www.themightyhebrew.com. We've got some big things planned for the website. Also, as I mentioned Tuesday night, we are going to start in the near future. The Mighty Hebrew is going to be doing the book review of his book club. And those are 10 to 12 of the Mighty Hebrew's favorite books that are filled with information. You could consider them a tribal minister's must-read book. So we're looking forward to that. Shout out to everybody that's paying attention, taking notes, and studying. Also want to give a shout out to the women in the tribal minister's lives that always stand by him, and that is Queen Bathsheba and Sister Dania. Take it away, good brother.
Hallelujah. So as we continue on looking at the image, let me get the image, put it up on my screen. Okay, so now I can see it. All right, so as we continue, I already broke it down, showing about the eggs hatching by the symbolic understanding of the sun's connection to the earth. But I'm going deeper than that. The sun is just imagine a camera for a minute. You see the lens of a camera and you see that flash. Pow. That right there, that lens that you see is quote unquote the sun. But the whole body itself of the camera would be that vortexian power behind the sun that we can't see because how we are on this plane of existence. So it's given us a limitation as to what we can see and what we can't see. Okay. So now, again, get courtesy to one of my primary sources, The Lost Continent of Mu by Churchwood, as well as my teacher, one of my teachers by the name of Mr. Brown, coming from out of the Theosophical Society, as well as some of my master teachers, Prince Kazari Dar Ben Yisrael, or Prince Kez Ben Yisrael, Master Teacher Adonenu Rabbeinu Ben Ami Ben Yisrael Hamoshiach, from out the kingdom of Yah and Domona, may he rest in completeness as an ascendant being for us. So now, we're going to continue on. We're looking at, I believe, 7. Now, this right here, 7, which you see, okay, is a geometric symbol that was assigned by the ancients to Mu. It is also the heretic letter M, which reads Mu, Ma, okay, Mim, Mata, land, field, country, and mouth. Look at 8. You see the Tha or the Ta was a symbol of resurrection in Mu. It is the picture of the constellation, the Southern Cross. The Tha also symbolizes bearing forth, to emerge. 9. Look at the 9th symbol. It's the lotus flower, which was the floral symbol of Mu. Tradition says that the lotus was the first flower to appear upon the earth, and for that reason, it was adapted as the symbolical flower of the motherland. 10, talking about numeric. There was the symbolic numerical adapted to represent Mu. This was because the continent consisted of 3 separate areas of land divided from each other by narrow channels or seas. 11, you got Ka. The leaping deer is frequently found in the Naka tablets. It is the symbol of first man. This animal was selected to symbolize the first man because of its leaping power. Man came on earth perfectly developed. He leaped upon the earth in his first and original form without going through nature's development of life. In other words, he was a special creation. Okay, he was a special creation. 12. This was the ancient symbol of fire in Mu. The lines began thick at the bottom and wave and taper to the fine point or to a fine point. Okay, 13. Look at 13. Okay, now this appears on a tablet describing the rising of the mountains and the formation of gas belts. Therefore, we see where the Chemedians attained their symbol of fire. Also the scarab. The Nakals from India carried them into Egypt or Kemet. The Chemedians or Kamau fire symbol is only a modification of the Naga. The Chemedians put a handle on the Naga and turned it into a sword. Okay, now if you see that right there, okay, that's a powerful symbol right there. Now this is the symbol of the sacred 4, which under innumerable names, and you know it has different names for different cultures, and it has played an important role in man's conception of the creator and the creation itself, from the earliest of ancient writings down and including the present time. Okay, so the Nakha writings tell of the sacred 4, where the creator's commands that evolved law and order from chaos throughout the universe. When they had completed this work, they were given charge of the physical universe. Now, this is where, you know, the Aztecian tablets say identically the same thing. The Nahal writings throughout give them symbolical names. The Nahal tablet, which might tell us what the sacred four are beyond the fact that they were the four great commands in creation, is missing. As the sacred four were commands, they naturally were given to something to be executed. What was that something? Now, I have found nothing among the ancient inscriptions and writings that tell us, but this tablet, okay, supplies the information, okay? It supplies the information. Now go to the next one, and this will be the last one for today, and we will have part 3. So now go to the next one. Yes. Okay. So now the first figure that you see, okay, the central figure of this diagram, okay, is a circle, which is a picture. Some try to say it's the sun Ra. You know, some try to say it's Shamash. Okay. That's, you know, some people say that. We at the Mighty Hebrew University, we defer a little bit, but we say that this is just the pure intellectual energy that has no beginning or ending, that keeps everything in existence emanating. Okay. So the collective or henotheistic symbol of the creator Yahweh, it was one of the first 3 symbols used in spiritual cultural teachings. As it was henotheistic, it was the most sacred of them all. 2. Now, within the circle is a hieratic letter H of the motherland's alphabet, talking about ancient Lemuria, okay? Being a hieratic letter that carries a symbol or symbolic meaning. It is the alphabetical symbol of the sacred four. As it is within the circle, it is within the creator. Thus, the sacred four is within the creator, comes out of his mouth. His powers or forces, the sacred four, the 4 great primary forces, are thus shown coming directly from the creator, as the ancients termed it. His desires, his wishes, and his command. 3, this is a symbol of a force. Okay, the base shows where the origin of the 4 is, and the point of direction which the 4 takes in its workings. Okay, so it talks about moving the force by way of west to east, east to west. 4. Each of the 4 forces have an arrow, spear, dart, or javelin head. This is the symbol of activity, showing that the force is not dead, but remains active and continuous in one direction from west to east. Okay, so the ancients, they understood this and wrote that when this was accomplished, they were given charge of the physical universe. Okay, of the physical universe. 5, this symbol, forms the word geometrian. This word is written within each of the 4 forces. So here it is called the 4 great geometrians, the 4 great primary forces. They are the primary forces because they are depicted as coming directly from Yahweh himself. And 6, last, this right here, this image is formed by crossing the 4 forces. All are moving from west to east. The point form a circle symbolizing the universe. They are therefore governing the movements of all bodies throughout the universe. It shows that all bodies that revolve and revolving from west to east, and that all circuits made by moving bodies are from west to east. Thus, all are moving on a center, as is symbolically shown. That center is the primary force, which is the great rootless one, Yahweh. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Yahai, 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 Selah.
All right, hallelujah, mighty Hebrew. That was a powerful presentation, man. A lot of great information that you shared today. You know, looking at these last few slides, you know, it's things are starting to really kind of unfold for myself. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around time. Doing a whole lot of research and study as far as that goes and what that really looks like, you know, and how we calculate time, and looking at how some of the ancients calculated time to now how we calculate time. You know what I'm saying? I think that's very important, especially if we're going to be in alignment with, you know, one, keeping the Shabbat, keeping the feast days, things of that nature. Because if we are going to, you know, follow God's time, then, you know, I think it's important for us to, you know, to understand this and do the research like what you're doing right here. Because if we're going to follow the Gregorian calendar, you know what I'm saying, then of course we're going to be wrong all the way around. You know what I'm saying? Because when you're just looking at just the, you know, the typical calendar with, you know, 365 days, if you break that down, you know, the 7 days a week, you know what I mean, 52 days out of the year, you just don't, everything does not line up. And God is, you know, he's not a, you know, a God that is out of order. Everything is in order. And when you look at, you know, these ancient calendar systems and the way that they calculated time, everything was in order. You know, even, you know, looking at some of these, what they call it, the, man, I can't even think right now. I got a lot going on in my head. But anyway, you just struck a nerve right here. I think we got to come back and address some of these last symbols in a much more deeper conversation. I think you might already have a presentation on that, right?
Sure do.
You should do. Okay. So next time, let's run that, because like I'm totally interested in that aspect of it as well, because that's where I'm at. Now, let me ask you this, and I know this is kind of a little bit far off from this right here, but how do you actually calculate time when it comes to keeping the Shabbat and when you are following the feast days? Because we have one that's coming up, which is the, you know, the New Year, and then we have, you know, Pesach. How does that work for you, and how do you all keep those feast days there in Tanzania and in Dimona?
That's a good question. You can go to One Nation, One Calendar Coalition. That's what I'm under. What I do is, I'm not an expert in the calendar, but what I could do is bring an expert in our community known as Dr. Morey Yoel Ben Yisrael. Him, Saul Rabbah, and many others been dealing with telling the time, by the way, the sliver moon for over 30 years. So what I'll do, and they get their calculations by dealing with the barley in the land of Israel. So what I'll do is, because that's not my profession, is me and Dr. Morey Yoel, we're very close. We grew up together in Philly. So what I'll do is I'll bring him on the show, and you can have a straight, he could do a presentation strictly on the calendar and how we determine our feast or our festies or our chag that's outlined in Wayikra or Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. So I'm gonna I'm a hold back on that and bring an expert in on that. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody has they feel, and I think, and I can get him in a couple of weeks.
Let me just reach out to him, and I definitely will bring that on the show.
Right, good. That'd be perfect, because I think that's something that'll kind of help lead up to, you know, the celebration of Pesach and the New Year as well for all of those within Yisrael. Also,
Okay.
too, going back to the book of Kilam Bilam.
Yes, yes, yes.
I'm doing some research on that right now. Who translated that book, or what book was that again? Because I don't want to.
That came from the ancient Mayans.
Right, because I'm trying to
That
see.
was about
Yeah, I'm doing some research right now, trying to see exactly who has a really good interpretation of it. I see a lot of commentaries.
I get you a nice proper interpretation of it.
Okay,
I
because
get that.
I seen one particular book, and I clicked off of it, but I'm gonna go back through my history. But it actually shows that one of the no, I'm sorry, I take that back. That's in the it was another in the Akan, the Ashanti people.
I got it right here. You can go to lecture notes of the School of the Wisdom by Godfrey Huggins. You can go. Yep, Godfrey, Hodson. Yep. Go to lecture notes of the School of the Wisdom. It might be, if you can't get it, then what I would have to do is snapshot copy and email it to you.
Yeah,
because
we'll work through it. Yeah.
Right, because this book, if you go online, they might try to charge you like 15,000 for it.
Yeah, I'm
like
seeing
straight up.
I'm seeing some real expensive literature out here.
Yeah,
that's why I say, you know what I mean, like the support is very much needed, because these books is not cheap.
they're not.
And so, because I seen, and not just them, I saw too within the Akan people that one of the days of the week actually has the name of Yahuwah in it, or Yahweh. And just kind of seeing some of these correlations, not just with the Akan people, the Ashanti people, but also too within the ancient Mayans. We went there to Chichen Itza. I think I just said it right, but we went there to one of those ancient ruins, Mayan ruins, a couple years back, man. And they shared some powerful stories. And this is probably about, and I got a video on it. I'm gonna find that video and we can run it and we could talk about it, because one of the tour guys was actually giving us the story of the tree of life within the ancient Mayan culture. You know what I'm saying? And it's very powerful, because when you have a people here in the South Americas, you really don't think that they have that same ancient knowledge as those that might be over in Africa, but they all share similar stories and histories, and they have similar sciences, especially when it comes to the Mayan tree of life. We're talking about that right now, or we're talking about it, when you deal with the Kabbalah, all these different,
right. The Mayans go back to a group called Naga Maya.
Mm-hmm.
And the Naga Maya came from the Indus Valley and went into what we know as South Central America.
Mm-hmm.
So the Mayans are actually descendants of people from the Indus Valley.
Okay.
You can, if you type up right now on your Google, type up Naga Mayan, and it all pop up for you. If you just type NAGA and then next to it Mayan, MAYAN, see what pops up. You can say, who are the Naga Mayan? That's what you say. Or you can say, are the Mayans descendants of the Naga Mayan?
Yeah,
I see Naga.
Yeah.
But type in, are the Mayans descendants of the Naga Mayan? Say it like that. Are the Mayans descendants of the Naga Maya? And see what happens. See what all pop up.
Don't check my spelling, y'all.
You see it all pop up? Say, I see it right there. It says as Mayans, Indos, it says Indian, Naga, and then question mark. I see it right there. You see it?
No.
I'm looking right at it. There you go. Bang. There it is right there. Oh. It give you all that you need, bro. You know the mighty Hebrew don't play no games, bro.
At all. That's why we're here. So yeah, I'm gonna save this. But yeah, when we come back, you know, next time, we're gonna dive deeper into this.
That right there is what that say? Are Mayans, Indian, Naga, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Enjoy that, bro. So then you understand when you went and heard the story of the tree of life, it makes all perfect sense. Because remember, the word patala or atala means underworld. And many of those that were rejected in the Indus Valley, they went to the underworld or the Americas. A good book to get is India Once Ruled the Americas. Matter of fact, let me get the correct name. Excuse me. Hold on. Let me get the correct name. It's called Here it is. It's called India Once Ruled the Americas by Glenn D. Matlock. That's what it's called. Type that up real quick so the people can see. It's called India Once Ruled the Americas. Just type that in. Type that in. India Once Ruled the Americas. That's by Glenn D. Matlock. I got the book right in my hand right now. I'm looking directly at it.
Can you show it? Is it the?
Oh, sure. Hold on. Let me turn on my Hold on. Sure, I can show it. All right, turn on my camera.
Okay, it has a red cover.
Yup.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm looking at the right one.
Let me turn on my camera.
I wonder if they have this on.
Yes. Okay. Here it is, right here. You see it?
Okay, hold on. Let's go back here. Mm-hmm.
You see it, right?
Yep.
Yep. Get that with the black man on the elephant.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's the elephant. Okay.
Yeah. India Once Ruled the Americas by Glenn D. Matlock. Very powerful book. Very powerful. And I'm gonna read a quotation real fast that I found very interesting about the finding of where the Nile Valley dropped in Lake Victoria. Listen to this. In an essay entitled On Egypt from the Ancient Book of the Hindus, Asiatic Researchers, Volume 3, 1792, British Lieutenant Colonel Francis Wilford gave abundant evidence proving that ancient Indians colonized and settled in Egypt. The British explorer John Hanning Speke, who in 1862 discovered the source of the Nile in Lake Victoria, acknowledged that the Egyptians themselves didn't have the slightest knowledge of where the Nile source was. However, Lieutenant Colonel Wilford's description of the Hindus' acquaintance with ancient Egypt led Speke to Ripon Falls at the edge of Lake Victoria. So the Hindu manuscript showed that. And also I want to show real quick in this book, Unveiling Genesis, Mystery of the Root Races and Cycles. This is a very thick book by Philip Lindsay. I want to go to page 400. I believe it's 54. I want to just read something real quick that I found very interesting. Let me make sure. Hold on. The Ethiopian. Okay. I want to read something to you that I find very, very interesting, that I think y'all will find very interesting too. So let me get to it. Now, here it is right here. Excuse me, it's on page 449. It says, Ethiopians of India, the first Egyptians. Now, listen to this. I want to drop, and now I'm just going to start here. Helen P. Blavatsky states extensively that it was the Ethiopians who were the founders of the second sub-race of Egypt, or in Egypt. The Ethiopians are mentioned in several areas of this book. So the following length excerpt, with some commentaries, may contain familiar passages. The mystery of the Ethiopians, who are older than the Hindus, is one of the most important pieces of the jigsaw of the ancient races. Now, when they talk about the Ethiopians, don't think of the Ethiopians that we know today. Watch this. The Egyptians were the ancient Indians, or the ancient Black Indians of ancient India, is more uncertainly defined than that which bore the destination of India and lay to the east of Babylon, Tigris River. It was once the name of Hindustan, northwest India, when the dark races, or the Black races, worship Bala, Mahadeva, and Bravina Mahidevi, were supreme in the country. The India of the early sages appeared to have been in the region at the source of the Oxens, in the Jaxaries, just north of Hindu Kush, near the Afghanistanian border. We must remember that the peoples of southwestern and western Asia, including the Medes, were all Aryans. Now watch this. It is yet far from being proved who were the original and primitive masters of India. That this period is now beyond the reach of documentary history does not preclude the probability of our theory that it was the mighty race of builders, whether we call them Eastern Ethiopians or dark-skinned Aryans. The word meaning simply noble warrior, a brave. They ruled supreme at one time over the whole of ancient new script speaking people. India of the archaic period consisted of Persia. In the west, in the north, it covered Tibet, Mongolia, and the vast region further north, which is now the territory of Russia, to the east, Cambodia and Vietnam. In the south, in sunken land of the original Tamil Nadu. These Hindus are supposed to have entered the country from the northwest Hindu Kush area. They are conjectured by some to have brought with them the Brahminical religion. And then it drops down and says, we will also consider how much they may have had to do with the Egyptian civilization. Egypt owes her civilization, commonwealth, and arts, especially the art buildings, to pre-Vedic India. It was a colony of black-skinned Aryans, or those whom Homer and Herodotus term the Eastern Ethiopians, the inhabitants of southern India. I just want to stop right there. That's my point, right? So we when we talk about the Ethiopians, it has to be understood, not Ethiopia as we know today. It only meant burnt-faced people. You had the Eastern Ethiopians and the Western Ethiopians. The Eastern Ethiopians were like Hebrew Yadava tribes that stayed in the Indus Valley. And then the Western Ethiopians were those Hebrew Yadava tribes like Abraham and them that migrated into Mesopotamia and Canaan land and then into Egypt. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. So Mighty Hebrew, is there anything that you might want to add that you didn't get a chance to say earlier during the presentation, to kind of close us out? You know, any words of inspiration for the people for this Shabbat based on things that may have transpired in your life that you want to share with the people outside of this? You know, feel free for the next, 3 to 5 minutes to share.
Can. First and foremost, I give all praise and honor to Yahweh, the supreme, intelligent, powerful one of our forefathers. Cool. What I want to say is, lately we know there's been a lot of transitioning taking place with our people. I want everybody, if they could, to read Tehillim or Psalms, the first chapter, when y'all get some time, because there's a time and place for everything. And, I know that we've been taught to understand when you have life, there's death, things of that nature. Here at the Mighty Hebrew University, death is really a transition within life. And the reason why we call it death, because we really can't define what's on the other side, so to say. So we theorize, based on what we know and what was passed down. And hopefully what we know can be made manifest in the hereafter. So for all those that may be, dealing with issues of transitioning with family members, friends, loved ones, know that there's a power of powers that is the sole controller of all things. And keep in mind that when we're here on this earth, to cherish those that were there for us. You know what I'm saying? Because we don't know when our day may come, So we have to stay on point with the law, statutes, and commandments of the creator of heaven and earth, because we don't know that we can be here today and then tomorrow we're not here. So cherish your loved ones while they're here. Give those that are around you their flowers now. Respect your husband, respect your wife, respect your brothers and sisters around you, your kinsmen, your friends, because you never know that those that you may be taking advantage of intentionally or non-intentionally, they won't be here any longer. So I just want to remind the family to pray for all those, even if you don't know their names, pray for all those that's dealing with transitioning right now, because the transitioning right now is very deep in our community. We've seen the brother, from De La Soul, he just passed away. We seen Esoteric Thoughts just passed away. You know what I'm saying? We have family members, not to put out there, that has made transition. So this week has been a week of transitioning. So I just found out that Sean Prince just passed away, the rapper. So you're seeing that he just passed away like yesterday, the other day, something like that. So we have to keep in mind to love one to another, to cherish one another's company, to know that it's bigger than just debating on social media. It's about a lifestyle being a Hebrew Israelite. It's about upholding this Torah to, one day manifest the self-autonomy that we so desire. But it takes movement and work. You know what I'm saying? So we all just want to keep up what needs to be done. And that's to return back to the law, statutes, and commandments. And for the families that had any form of transitioning, I will go deep into tefillah. I will pass the word. We have to keep each other in prayer. We have to keep, ourselves lifted up and stay suited and booted. Hallelujah. Hebrew Israelite sovereign nationalism has risen worldwide.
Hallelujah. Shabbat and shalom to everyone. Peace and blessings.
Shabbat shalom. Hallelujah. Shabbat shalom.